Anyway, so my name is Brenton O'Callaghan, and I'm the head of customer experience, and I'm delighted to be joined by two of my colleagues. So Tyler, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Tim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Brenton. My name is Tyler, Constable, Director of Sales Engineering here for North America at Avantra.
I'm Tim Reiss. I'm the Technical Customer Support Manager here at Avantra.
Awesome. So this is the first of our live streams. So it's going to be a little bit off the cuff, a little bit just kind of taking you through some of the core features of Avantra and showing you how they work. So what we're going to do is most of this is going to be done by screen share. So I'm going to start us off. So I'm going to share my screen, desktop number 2, like this. And here we have our educational system, which is our Avantra EDU1 system. So this is a basic Avantra installation just after it's been installed. And it'll be helpful if I got the password right. So now I'm going.
Fact number 1, correct passwords are good.
Correct? Are they really? Bet you one of the two. Oh, there we go. So now, so I've managed to log in. Okay. So this is an Avantra installation, which I had previously set up earlier. And this is what you're faced with once you've installed Avantra as a vanilla installation. So we've done nothing to this system. It's Avantra 20.2.3, which is the latest version, which was released. Keep me honest here, Tyler. Was it 3 or 4 days ago? Last Friday or something?
Exactly. I believe last Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I pop into about Avantra here, you'll see that it's, yeah, here we go. So it's master version 20.2.3. And we're using the latest version of the UI as well. It doesn't really matter which version. Is it fair to say, Tyler, it doesn't really matter which version you're using. They're all pretty much similar. It's just a case of, you know, the latest is always probably the best. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, 99% of the things are going to be the same. There's newer versions have newer functionality, but majority of things we're going to be talking about today are pretty standard across all versions.
Excellent. Yeah, cool. So we have a vanilla installation. So what I'm probably going to do here is for you, Tim, and for you, Tyler, I'm going to create you guys users, and probably one for myself as well, because I've logged in with the admin user. I think that's typically probably the first thing people would want to do, create themselves a user, and just before they start really getting into some of the fundamental concepts. So I'm going to create you guys users now. So I'm going to go into administration and into user management. And you can see here the kind of the standard users that are delivered with the standard vanilla Avantra installation. So I'm going to create, in fact, I'm just going to copy the user I'm currently on. So I'm going to copy the user Avantra, and I'm going to create one for Tyler. So Mr. Tyler, Constable, Tyler. Actually, I don't think this box can send emails. So it should work now. So I'm going to set your password now. I'm going to set it to the standard password we've been using, Tyler, the super secret one about beer. So feel free to use that. Okay. So in fact, there it is. Okay. So Tyler, you're created. So Tim, I'm going to go ahead and create one for you now as well. So I'm going to copy user, and I'm going to copy Tyler. So I'll say Tim, and then Reiss.
All your just note here. So the username, the user ID that you give up there is case sensitive if this installation is done on a Linux box. Just a side note to make note of.
That's, would you believe? So when I got the password wrong twice earlier, I need to move your head bubbles over to here. So I'm talking to you rather than to over there. So actually when I got the password wrong, or appeared I got the password wrong earlier, that's what happened. So I always, you know, muscle memory. I'm kind of always typing Avantra with a capital A. And that's what happened to me. So the admin user in this case, which I had set, was Avantra with a lowercase a. So that's exactly what hit me earlier. But that's not the case on a Windows box. Is that correct?
On a Windows Server installation, correct.
Ah, cool. Excellent. Okay, Tim, you should be good to go as well. So that's it. So what I might do now is actually I'm going to create one for myself. While I'm doing that, Tyler, I might just hand the screen share over to you if you want. And I think probably a good place to start might be because one of the core concepts of Avantra is this multi-tenancy, and that object that splits out your individual landscapes, your individual customers, is called customer. So that might be a good place to start if you wanted to start there, Tyler.
Sure thing.
Yeah, okay. So I've stopped sharing, so if you want to go ahead and share, I'm just going to create myself a user while you're doing that.
So you should be able to see my screen now, and I've just put in the credentials that Brenton has provided. Let's see if I got them right. All right, so far so good. Quick note on my own personal user ID that I'm in here. I can actually go up here and look at my user settings. One of the nice things in here, so this is all just standard stuff, username, password, and all that. But a little secret down here, there's this little button that says disable notifications. So if you are ever go on holiday or taking a week off and you don't want any notifications going out to yourself out of Avantra, you can come in and click that little button and that will suppress any notifications. So just a little user
that's
setup.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. But correct me if I'm wrong though. So if there is an integration to a third-party notification service, would that affect that as well? Or is it just notifications that come from Avantra itself?
I believe it is just when we set up notifications, if you use your user ID as any outbound way, so it could be an email or a text message, or if your user ID is associated with a system, it would be that. But majority of the times when we connect to it, like a ServiceNow or something like that, we're not doing that at the individual user layer. So it'd be a little different.
Cool.
So it kind of depends. But
cool. Okay, thanks for that. That's a really good trick. I'm definitely going to use that one.
Yeah, something you don't need to necessarily tell your boss either, too. So, a little secret. So now, back in the user management where Brenton had just created. Now, one of the things Brenton did is he just copied the I believe it was the main Avantra user. So it's got full access. Now, one of the things to note in here is we have different roles as well. So I think that one's got the administrator role. So we just copied that, and obviously we got administrator role. These are the default ones that come out of the box here. So there's the administrator role, there's a customer admin role, a basic role. And the nice thing about this is you can actually copy these as well. So if you needed to, you could come in here and do a copy, and where we go, looks like we're processing there. To
be fair, the box I put this on is not a very large box. So if we're starting to see some problems where it's not running fast enough, I can add a few CPUs to it.
Cool.
Hey, Tyler, can you explain the difference maybe between the customer administrative role and the administrator role? They sound very similar.
Good question.
Yeah, so actually, great point, going right in there. So when we go in, so I'm in the customer admin role, and I've gone into the permissions here, and you can now see that these are what this is in the terms of when we say customer, this is kind of a managed service provider's perspective. So if a managed service provider has Avantra and they want to give their end customer access and kind of have an admin role from a customer perspective, what that means is they can pretty much do everything in the system, but they cannot modify the back end of Avantra. So they can add their own systems, they can delete their own, they can add their own SAP systems and servers, they can delete those SAP systems and servers. Whereas the actual administrator role, as you can see here, actually can do the back end Avantra items as well. So that's kind of the breakdown. Then you get other ones as well. So like maybe there's just more of a basic role. This essentially says that the end customer can have access in Avantra, but they can't add systems. They can really just view systems and view what's going on, view reports. They get those really cool interactive reports and dashboards in Avantra, and they can see all that stuff. And then of course you can modify these as well. So if you wanted to, you can come in here and add things, remove things, what have you. So you could copy different roles, if you want to provide different levels of access. Now, earlier on I was talking about managed service providers. This is also very important for just enterprises, because maybe you've got a more senior level employee who's going to manage some of the automations and the starting and stopping capabilities. And then you've got maybe a more junior level employee, and they should not have access to start and stop capabilities. You don't want them accidentally bringing down production or anything like that. So this can be very, very powerful, and it's good to know the roles and that you can assign these roles to different users.
And I imagine you recommend not changing the default roles, but copying those and then modifying those roles and leave the default ones as is, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Good practice to definitely keep the original ones intact and copy those and then make some modifications. So that's the role, that's the user. Now you'll see in the user here, or I'm sorry, let me go into my user. I can be assigned to different customers. So right now we have different customers. These are my role. These are all the permissions that we just looked at, just done in a different view. And you'll see we have root and default customer. Now, everything in Avantra is done kind of at the customer layer. So 2 scenarios. As a managed service provider, you're going to have end customers. From an enterprise perspective, you still may have customers. This could be a case where maybe you've got different subsidiaries running different systems. You could also group it to different departments if you wanted. We've seen all different kinds of things.
I saw a great one. I used to work with quite a large high street bank, and they used to have to segregate out their different landscapes. So while they might have monitoring foundations that are common under, you know, your investment bank and your standard bank, they really needed to make sure that the actual landscapes themselves were completely separate. The administrators of both of the landscapes were separate. So that can be a great use case for where you would have one organization running this as if it was a multi-tenant environment. It's not just service providers who are looking for the multi-tenancy. Sometimes it can be those large enterprises who want to absolutely guarantee that, you know, a sub-organization A cannot see sub-organization B's data and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing this too, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, I'll go through an example, but we can actually give different levels of permission for different customers in Avantra terms. So maybe in what Brenton was just talking about, maybe, you know, group A, maybe there's someone that should have full-blown permissions, where in group B, they can still see the stuff, but they can't do anything or perform any automation. So there's some really cool things we can do around that as well. So, so to get into our customers, we're going to go to the administration dropdown, select customers. You'll see here, we currently don't have any. We have this root and then the default customer. So this is the kind of the beginning of the tree. So you can even have customers and sub customers as well. So you can.
So actually, really cool, Tyler, but before you kind of get into this, from a process perspective, if you're implementing Avantra, and you're saying, okay, look, we're going to do the installation next week, or we're going to, you know, get everything up and running next week, is this something you should be sitting down and planning with the administrators, with the business, and saying, right, guys, what kind of level of segregation do we need within the system, and start building this up ahead of time, or is this something that you can kind of build up as you go? What's your recommendation there?
Recommended is plan ahead, right? So we want to know how are we going to break these out? You know, how do we need, if we're just a single enterprise, how do we need segregation between different systems for any reason? If not, no big deal. If so, how do we want to break it up? And then start to think about the employees as well. So, okay, so who's going to have access to this? Who's going to have access to that? Do we need to map what kind of roles and all of that stuff? So once you have that kind of all mapped out, then when you have your Avantra master up and going, it makes it pretty quick and easy to go through that process. Cool.
Makes a lot of sense.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a new customer. Let's call that customer Acme. Simple as that.
Yep.
Hit create. There we go. Simple as that. We've created a customer. So, and the other important thing too is this should be done before we add any systems. Now, while we start adding systems in, when we get to that point, we're going to see we can identify a customer. If you don't do that, it'll default to the default customer, which means you just have to then go back and change everything. So,
but if later on I decide actually these 5 systems over here, I want them to be added to some other organization or other customer, depending on how we're configuring the system, we can do that, right?
Yeah, you can always go back in and within that system in Avantra, there's a little drop down and you can modify that customer.
Okay,
absolutely.
Cool.
So in here we have our essentially our first tab is just generic information if you want to put anything in. You know, sometimes there's good time for descriptions, what have you. From an application standpoint, you'll see we don't have anything right now, but as we start to add systems in here, they'll all start populating in here. So we'll see what kind of systems this customer has. Do they have ECC? Do they have BW? Or what have you? All of that is going to be in here. It's also in the system inventory here. So you'll see what SAP systems there are, see what databases, business objects, all this stuff.
I think a lot of this will make a lot more sense when it's populated, for sure. Yeah. At least for me anyway. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we can see users that are assigned to that organization as well, or to that customer.
Yep. So yeah, right now we can see which users have access to this. You can see the 3 of us and the administrator have access as well. So that's pretty much it for building out a customer. It's pretty straightforward. And while it is very easy, it's actually very, very powerful. This is the base foundation for everything we're going to do in Avantra. Everything is going to come back down to this customer entry level. The users, the systems, automations, everything comes down to the customer.
All right, so I think that's a great foundation. So for what we're going to be showing off over, so to put this in perspective for those who happen to be watching, and we have a few viewers at the moment, which is nice to see. We are going to be building on this as we go forward over the next few weeks, as we go through the whole Mastering Avantra series, and we want to make sure we're showing off a lot of this stuff. So what we might do here is maybe create a second customer, if that's all right with you, Tyler. So we'll have Acme, and maybe let's have something else as well, so we can start to showcase, a couple of servers attached to a couple of different customers and show what that looks like. Does that sound sensible?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, we need to give it a good name. Tim, I nominate you to come up with a name.
Awesome. Beers on you.
On you or you or you.
However you want to do it.
Beers on
Limited.
you.
Beers are on you.
Limited. Yeah, it's a limited company.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we've got our beers on you as well.
Cool. All right. What's next on our list of foundational elements we're going to cover today, Tyler?
So I think the last thing we wanted to talk about are the different types of system types.
Okay, cool.
So up here in the top, you'll see our different systems. Now, before I go into each one of these and what they are, it's important to note that when we do our next session, we're going to, when we add a system in here, we're actually going to be coming in here and adding a system. But also, this is how we license as well. So when we get to our licensing video, it's important to note that these 6 objects are the core foundation for our licensing as well. So to start things off, we have the very straightforward and simple servers, right? So this is essentially our operating system metrics. Now, from an SAP standpoint, you may ask, well, why do you have this separated from the SAP systems? And the answer is pretty much, as you know, SAP systems are not architected the same. An SAP system for one customer might be a database in the central instance or primary instance on one server. For another customer, it could be a CI on one server, a high availability database behind that, and 20 application servers all in their own operating systems. So we want to make sure from an admin point of view, or from a basis engineering standpoint, we can get to each of those servers quickly. So we actually break them out on their own as a system type. I'm going to skip one here and go down to what's called our instances. So instances are the central instance or the primary application server, however you reference that. It's also any additional instances as well. So any application servers. This is also for, we're going to find Trex and Web Dispatcher. All of that are going to be classified as an SAP instance within Avantra. Now, all of those.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it the same for an ABAP and a Java instance, or even a dual stack? Or they're all considered instances? Yeah,
thanks for clarifying. Yeah, so yeah, the Java instance, ABAP instance, dual stacks, each of those instances would reside in this grouping of SAP instances.
Okay.
And then those all roll up into what's called the SAP system. So now the SAP system, in Avantra terms, is that CI, primary application server, any additional application servers, and also the database that is associated with that SAP system. All right, so if you ever want to see the HANA metrics for your S4 system, you go into the SAP system to get those HANA metrics. If you ever want to see what's application server 19 of 20 doing, you can either go into the SAP instance and go find that application server, or you can go into the overarching SAP system and drill down that way as well. And this will make more sense too as we start to add systems in the future. Now you'll see there's another one here. It's called databases. And this is kind of a little tricky here. Again, if you are looking for the database metrics of an SAP system, you would go to the SAP system. The database section here is for standalone databases or sidecars. So if you've got a standalone Oracle database that you want to monitor that has nothing to do with SAP, yes, Avantra can do that. And so you'd find it here in the databases. You also see the next one is our SAP business objects. This is pretty straightforward. So if you're looking for any business object systems, we come in here. And then lastly, we have the cloud services, and this is pretty new. If you're on an older version of Avantra prior to our 20.2 release, you won't see this. And same with the business objects; these are both new. The cloud services is really cool. And this is kind of where a lot of the industry has been asking us, how can we connect to these other systems, including, the SAP Cloud Platform Neo. We've got pre-built APIs for that. So if you have a Neo-based system, you can connect into that. Also, if you have any other cloud systems like the SaaS solutions that SAP owns, so that Concur or Ariba, SuccessFactors, we're working on all the pre-built connections for those. But if you just have the API already, if you already know, like, if you the API hub, I forget what it's called. Brenton, do you remember what it's called, or Tim?
Yeah, so this, if you have a REST-based API, and that's kind of one of the things I discussed with Bernd, our CTO, because I know this is a fairly new feature actually in Avantra 20.2. So this is kind of hot off the press, as it were. But one of the things is, cloud services. What we mean by that is obviously stuff that's in SCP, the cloud platform, and it's where. But really speaking, it's wherever you have a API endpoint. You can set this up and say, you know what, I want to monitor this API endpoint. And they're actually fairly easy to set up as well. In fact, maybe that's one of the things we can do pretty simply later on. If you have a REST-based endpoint or even a SOAP-based endpoint, you can just throw the link in and say, right, let's monitor the response time. Let's see what we can do with monitoring these. So it's not just the stuff in the cloud. It can also be something that's sitting on-prem, because what we're looking at right here with this box is a box I set up in our on-prem infrastructure. So, we can point it to a cloud API or we can point it to a local API. We consider them the same.
And it's important to note too, man, that it can be other cloud things that are not just SAP cloud as well. So like, what's it called?
It's really failing. It's really failing you, the words today, aren't they?
Jeez, I'm having a hard time today.
I do remember when I was in. So our development team are based in Basel in Switzerland. Great group of guys, and they were testing this out, and they had on that big screen outside of the cafe, or outside the cafeteria, where we typically have a dashboard. They had added a new area to the dashboard to specifically test this feature, and it was Chuck Norris jokes. So it was loading an API endpoint, which was just Chuck Norris joke after Chuck Norris joke, which I thought was a brilliant way of testing it.
Yeah, and the word I was looking for was Salesforce. My gosh, that's all.
You know what, Tyler? You can leave now. That's fine.
Yeah.
I like the way you did that quite smoothly.
Yeah. So those are really the 6 different SAP. I'm sorry, I'm saying SAP. The 6 different types of systems in Avantra. So just to kind of just a very quick, high-level kind of recap of how we're building on top of things. There's the customer, then there's kind of side by side the users, and then the different types of systems. And the users and the customers really are the foundation for users and for systems, and then everything on top of systems is all the dashboarding, automation, and all that, and the things that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks over these videos.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, and hopefully by the time you over the next few weeks, as we add to these, we're also going to have some nice graphical elements showing this off to make it a little bit easier to visualize some of this stuff as well. But I think I'd like to get a little bit more tangible if we can, Tyler. Why don't we can, so the server I have this installed on right now, I know it's not an SAP system, but we should be able to monitor that server, right?
Yes, we'll just have to get if we've got the agent on there, we can definitely do that. I may kick that over to you.
Sure, you can talk me through it. Cool. So I'm going to share my desktop. Awesome. So I actually haven't downloaded the agent yet. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go do that. So let me log into the support website and show people where in the support website they can find it. But I'm going to log in a separate screen just for security purposes, because that would not be good to share. Bear with me for 1 second. Awesome. Cool. So can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So what this is here is, so if you've access to our existing software, it means you're a customer, which means you have access to what you see right in front of you, which is support.avantra.com, which is our support portal. Up the top of this, of course, if you're familiar with us, you'll know that you can raise support tickets, check ticket statuses, look at some of our knowledge base articles. You can also access our forums, and this is probably a good time to talk about that a little bit. So if you want to ask a question of myself, Tyler, Tim, or any of our kind of support engineers, or even some of our product team actually tend to spend some time there, you can pop into our forums and ask any questions, make suggestions, share any tips and tricks you might have, share custom checks. So I know, Tyler, you've been sharing some of the custom checks that you've been working on as well. So this is quite a good place to kind of ask basic questions about Avantra. It's where we all typically hang out. So feel free to shoot us a message in there or ask a question if you have anything you want to run by us. But what I want to go into here is the download software button. So this is where you can get access to the latest versions of Avantra. And if you scroll on this one, you'll see that, for example, our latest release 20.2.3, you get our full release notes, any bugs that we fixed, new features. And then down the bottom, you get access to our components. So you got the Avantra server, the Avantra agent, Avantra contributions, which includes stuff. So at the moment, we provide a PostgreSQL, for example, installer, so you can install the database for Postgre. Although, Tyler, it's fair to say we recommend that you go with, your standard package manager rather than necessarily getting it from us. Isn't that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct.
Yeah, so the three things that Avantra is reliant on, and we will do a video on installing Avantra. So the three things Avantra is reliant on is obviously the server, the Avantra installer itself, but it uses a JRE. So we obviously recommend that as well. But what's the name of the open JRE that we recommend, Tyler? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Let's double check that, because there's an open version of JRE which is available, which we recommend people use as well because it's got long-term support in the community. And then the final one is, of course, the database itself, which is PostgreSQL. So get that from your local package manager based on your distribution that you use. We also support MS SQL as well as the underlying database of Avantra.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to forget about Windows because I'm more of a Mac and Linux guy. What? No comments? Okay, fair enough.
We'll check the comments of the video later.
Yeah, that's fine. We can have a whole debate on that one. So in terms of Avantra agents, so our Avantra server that we're using is 20.2.3. 20.2.2 is the latest Avantra agent. We don't always release them at the same time. So just because there's a 20.2.3 server doesn't mean there's necessarily a 20.2.3 agent. So in this case, the latest agent is 20.2.2.
And Brenton, it's just for, and again, we'll probably talk about this more when we do the installation, but it is backwards compatible. So if if you're on the newest version of Avantra, well, updating agents are it's very simple. You don't have to do the update of the agent right away.
Right.
It can be done then.
All right, Tyler, talk me through this, because I'll happily admit I'm not the guy who usually installs the agents. So what am I looking for here? So I'm looking for the bin or the RPM.
Let's download that bin.
Okay, cool. So
and
that's
then we'll
downloading.
Pass it on to our.
Do you want me to SCP it over to the server?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. So why don't you talk a little bit? I'm going to pause my sharing. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this works while I'm SCPing that over? Because I'll do that in a separate screen.
Okay. Yeah. So while it's coming over, so basically, if this was not the master server, right? So now we're doing it on the master server. So some of the things that we would typically do aren't necessary anymore. So you have to first off create a directory called /Avantra, and make sure that, and then create a user in a group as well. So there's going to be an Avantra group and Avantra user that get installed as well. If it's an SAP system, we're also going to add that Avantra user, to the group SAP sys, and that essentially allows us allows Avantra to find the profile parameters, and it kind of starts why putting in Avantra, putting a SAP system in Avantra is very easy, because it's crawling through and finding the profile directories and then bringing them back where the locations are.
You need to stall a little bit longer, because I've got 40 seconds left on my download before I upload it. So, just keep stalling. It's fine.
One other thing to note on that, Tyler, is not only the SAPSys group, but also to make sure that the Avantra user has permissions to read not only the profile directory, but also the home directory of SID-ADM. We found that if that's missing, that it's unable to connect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Completely, yeah, important. Yeah, that one stuck me last week for quite a while. Tim helped me out on that one. Then basically at that point, we just go in. We have to make sure that we'll upload the agent, make sure that you've got permissions to run the agent, and you just kick it off, and it takes 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and that's it. To be honest, when you're in a normal installation, if we were installing this agent on an SAP system, the thing that takes the longest is wherever your Avantra master sits and wherever that agent resides, if there's not a direct network connection in between them, that's usually the part that takes the longest is calling the network team and saying, hey, can you open up these specific ports and make that network connection. That's always the longest part. Once that's all in place, this is a pretty painless process. Brenton, is that still coming down?
It's actually gone back up, which is great. Awesome. So I'm well on the way to being ready for you guys. In fact, that's done. So why don't I share my screen and you can talk me through it. Hopefully I'm sharing the right screen. Cool. So so what I've done here is I'm just SSH'd into the box. And I have logged in as, the user that runs the services for Avantra for us is a user called Xandria. So a bit of history there. So before Avantra was Avantra, it was known as Xandria as part of the company Syslink. We rebranded to be a single software company under a single name. So everything's under Avantra, but some legacy still exists. So I still by default install under the user Xandria as per the documentation. But obviously you're probably going to conform to whatever guidelines your own security teams within your own organization have provided you around usernames, permissions, and that kind of stuff. So if I go into I have a folder here called Avantra and a folder called installers. And in here, I'll just list it so it's easier to see. I've got my Avantra server, which I actually used to install this earlier on today. I've got the JRE I mentioned. And then I've got the PostgreSQL installation as well. But I've just added this one here, which is the agent 20.2.2.bin. So Tyler, what am I doing next?
All right, so basically just want to verify we've got the correct permissions here. So it looks like sure. We're able to run that agent.bin.
Okay, so let me just actually, I'm probably going to need to change it to executable, aren't I? Mm-hmm. So first of all, actually, I'm going to come back out and I'm going to copy that from the Avantra installers agent to /syslink. And then I'm going to su to Xandria, and I'm going to go to cd syslink. Cool. Okay, so now it's in here. Let's check the permissions. So the agent.bin is currently owned by root still.
Yeah, we'll change that over.
Yep.
And the permissions.
So agent. Please let that be the password. Okay, I'm going to cheat slightly. So I'm going to chown, and it's going to be. This is not in the least bit intimidating that you guys are watching me trying to do this because, All right, there we go. I'm not as bad as I thought. Cool. So now if I look at it, yes. Cool. There we go. Okay, so now chmod plus X on the agent.
Cool. And then
let me just run it.
You just run it. And what's going to happen here is it's going to ask you, well, this one might not, but,
okay.
Good.
Yeah, I know exactly what this problem is. So do you know what it is, or do you want me to, do you want to talk through it?
I'm well familiar, but yeah, go ahead.
So if I have understood the issue correctly, so this does not know where to find the JRE because the JRE is required to run our agent as well. So actually, if I ran it like this, come on, there we go. Yeah, it's just being slow. And I added that to the end. So
one thing that's important to note here as well. So again, we're not, the system we're currently doing this on does not have SAP. But if it did, this will not collide. You can have a different Java version specifically for Avantra in a different directory, as Brenton's showing here, and install it, and that will not collide with your SAP version. It's
actually the way I prefer to do it, because sometimes you'll have different versions of Java required for different things, and you just really don't want them interacting with each other. So the nice thing is that both the server and the agent do a double check just to make sure that they have compatible versions of the JRE. It's still not worked. Have I too many dashes on this one? Is it also a double dash space double dash? On this
not sure.
Well, do you know what? This is a good time to bring up. Okay, where do you go if you need some help? So the first place I would go is docs.avantra.com. If you haven't come across this, I wouldn't be surprised, because we only released this to the public probably in the last 2 months. So this is where you'll find online versions of all of the Avantra documentation. So if you need help, if you need to search for something, you can come in here, and you can see we have a whole section called Installing the Avantra Agent. So there's loads of information in here around the transport that you import into your SAP system. But what I'm interested here is installing the agent on Unix. So let me just scroll down here. So I've already done the owning. I've gone in as Andrea. I've added executable. It's almost like I followed the instructions.
So I think it's just step number 7, a little bit up. Or are you looking? Oh, sorry, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. So currently my Java's not on the path.
Yep.
But JVM. So
it looks like is it just 2?
Should be just, maybe it's just 2. So let's try it with just 2. Nope. So like that. Syslink JRE bin Java. That should work. And syslink Java. Where am I? So I'm in syslink. Oh, that would do it. It's looking in syslink Java. So looking for Java virtual machines in /syslink/Java, but that's not where I've told it to go. So I've told it to go to syslink JRE bin Java. So JVM, is that what I'm using? Yeah, it is. Any suggestions, guys?
Looking here. Why is it going? Not sure why it's going to that.
Could cheat and just put it on the path.
Yeah, we could just also say.
Nope. On the path, I put it into Java home, didn't I? Never mind. Oh, come on. Now this is getting ridiculous. So that did not work. So I'm going to echo my path. 1 second now. So syslink JRE bin Java. Let's have a look in there. So cd. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, now it's working. So what what the mistake I made there was I was pointing to the Java file rather than the Java directory. It's clear. So now let's try agent. Should work. Yes, there we go.
Hey.
Yeah.
So what
it's only because you guys were watching. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's the way it always works. I went into a demonstration yesterday, and literally the minute before our demo system connection went out down. So it's just the way it works, right?
Yeah, it is just the way. And also, when you're about to do a live demo of anything, that's when things go wrong. But you know what? Half the battle is being able to solve those problems. So just to reiterate what the problem was there. So actually, if I quit out of this for a second. So I was running this command. If I go back up. Here we go. So I was running agent 20.2.2.bin, and I was providing, and actually, so the command I ended up running was this command. Okay. So the 2 dashes mean we're about to pass in some extra variables into the running of the agent, of the installation of the agent. And then the actual flag I'm passing in is the location of the Java virtual machine. And I said it was /syslink/jre/bin/java, which is saying to go to the folder Java in the folder bin, in folder JRE in the folder syslink. Java in this case is not a folder, it's an executable. So what I should have said was that, and it would have solved the problem. So actually, in the meantime, what I've actually done is I've added Java to the path, which means that anybody can execute it from anywhere. So I can just run it like this. So it knows where to find the Java because it's on my path. Cool. All right, so now it's going through the installation. The first thing it's going to ask me is, okay, so it's running. Never mind. It's all done. So it's so in the previous installation, before I quit it out, yeah, I set you can set the port that you want your agent to be listening on. So the default port is 9051. Remind me of which port it is on the server that it does the corresponding communication. Is it 9050, Tyler?
So the default on the Avantra master is 9050.
Perfect. So 9050 communicates with 9051 on the agents themselves. Both of those are completely configurable. So if your network admins want you to use specific ports or to do or not to do certain things, there's not a problem. But that's it. We've installed the agent on the server. So Tyler, I'm going to hand it back to you now. Why don't you log into the server and let's get this agent, let's get the server monitored. Is there anything else we need to do here before we do that?
Nope, that should be it. Let's see here.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go back
over to you
here. All right. So basically, we're just going to add the server itself, and I'm going to go to new physical server. Now, obviously, this is a cloud virtual server, but we just separate them out between our clusters and our physical servers. And let's see here. The name of the server, I believe, is this here.
Yeah, that's the name of the underlying host name as well.
Okay.
Can that be anything? Can that be a freeform field if we want to call it something else, or does it have to be the host name of the server?
That should be the so this should be the server name. Now for virtual clusters, it's got to actually be the correct one. But in here, yeah, you theoretically could change it, but you want it to be the server name. When we get to the SAP part, there's a field you can actually modify as well.
Okay.
And then see if this works without the fully qualified, because I don't have the full thing here. But you'll see here, this is where our customer name is. Let's put it on this one here, and then whatever kind of system it is.
Sure. I mean, if that doesn't work, Tyler, you can always use localhost because it is essentially the local host.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I could have done that. So let's see here. So we now have our system in here. Looking like it's monitored. And we're just waiting for any checks to start coming in here. And
so typically, so now talk me through what's actually happening right now. So we've told Avantra that this server exists. Go find it. What's happening right now? Is the communication starting to occur? How does that work?
So typically when, so again, we just installed this on the same server that our Avantra master is on. So it's just kind of monitoring itself. But typically what will be going on is the Avantra master is going to go try to talk to the agent and say, hey, are you here? And then what it does is it passes its config to talk home to it, right? So it says, hey, here's how you talk back to me, and away you go. Then it starts passing information back. So it's kind of a two-step process if this was on two different servers. Can I connect to the agent? Can the agent connect back to me? If that's good, that circle's working, then it's gonna say, all right, start passing me some information. So see what's going on here. We might just pass
it's actually picked up on it. I can see it in my screen over here. So if you do a refresh, you'll actually see it's picked up on it, yeah.
Okay, cool. So here we can see an agent connect, an agent alive. Now just what I was doing, just for an explanation here. So if you ever do want to kind of hustle along, again, this is more relevant if you're like working with SAP systems and so on and so forth. The check cycle is going to run essentially every minute for the agent alive and every 5 minutes, depending on.
So before you go there, Tyler, actually, so back up a little bit. So you used a couple of terms there that I want to make sure that we talk through. So agent alive, what is that? What does that mean?
So basically, yeah, can we talk to, can the Avantra master see that it's supposed to go out somewhere to the agent? Okay. So that's the first. Agent
is the agent alive? So kind of what it describes is what it's doing.
Yep. And the agent connects, pretty much saying, okay, can it talk to the connection back? There's a little connectivity thing back here. And you can actually see what's going on. So you can actually see, oh, it's green because the master can talk to the agent can talk back to the master. Now in more complex scenarios, we may have gateways in here. So we have Avantra, actually the agent can be used as a gateway. There might be scenarios where there are multiple gateways if you've got some complex networks. So you would actually see that whole routing in here. And maybe this is a good thing for another video. We can actually design the route. So you don't have to like type it in. You can actually design the route by point and click as well. So it's probably something for a later session. We can actually probably build out more complex network to do. But again, if you
that'd be awesome. So essentially, when you say gateway, you're essentially talking about how other Avantra agents can almost proxy requests from other agents back to the master if those kind of distant agents can't hit the master themselves directly. Exactly.
Yep. You'll see down here, there's a little button that says use as gateway. And essentially then that becomes the way to get through, the master can get through to those endpoints. So yeah, we've now connected our agent. We can see some of our checks that's going on here. Just real quick, again, we'll probably cover this in a later session as well, but if you ever want to see more information on anything, you can click into the 3 little buttons here. So that's the only file system on this little server here, but essentially on the results column here, there's always 3 little buttons. And this is where you're going to find more information on everything. The cool thing here is if we had an SAP system on this, as I remember, one of the things Tim had brought up earlier is you need to have access to the profile directories and the SAP home directory. What this does, this self-check actually goes out then and says, okay, what SAP systems are on this server? So it automatically does that for you. Even if you have multiple SAP systems running on this same server, it will go out and find all of those instances, application servers, again, primary application server, central instance, finds them all and brings them in here. And essentially then it says, okay, I know that these are here. And we would then go add our SAP system. Again, a video for probably the next time when we'll add that system in here. So now we have our checks that are currently going on. Right now I'm looking at the checks on just this one server. If I wanted to, I could go across and look at my checks across all my servers. Now, obviously we only have one in here, and you can see here. So that's just a nice same view. And always we have our critical, warning, and okay status. You'll see there's these 2 other ones that are pretty important here. There's this disabled status, which is pretty self-explanatory, but there's this unknown status, and this is actually pretty awesome. What this does is there's certain hierarchies, right? So if this agent alive goes into critical status, all of the other checks go into an unknown status. And so they all show up as purple here. Why that's important is later on when we start talking about notifications, the notifications we can set up based on the status. So these colors that they're in. So if the agent goes down, it'll go red. Everything else will go into an unknown status, which means we only alert on the red status, the critical status, and we only get one notification. We're not going to flood an inbox with a bunch of false positives or anything saying, hey, oh my gosh, everything's down. I can't, paging space is red because I can't talk to it. That's just ridiculous. So it's just going to do one critical status and everything else goes in an unknown status. So that's what these other statuses here are for as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of getting to the point now where it's probably a logical point for us to stop before we do the next one of these. And just for everybody else's benefit, we're going to try and do a few of these a week over the next few weeks to just kind of keep people ticking over and get you kind of a bit more in-depth analysis. So if the stuff you want to see, reach out to myself, Tyler, or Tim. You know how to contact us. Via the Twitter, via support, via the forums, whatever you want to see. Feel free to shoot us a note, and we'll try and cover any topics that you want us to really deep dive on. But I think that's been really good. So let's just quickly recap everything we've covered. So when we started off, I did the user creation, and we went through the copying of some existing users, making sure they had the super administrator role, which you took us through that, as Tyler has up on the screen there now. So then Tyler, you started with customer, wasn't it? To take us through the customers.
Yeah.
So the customers being the foundational element within which all other objects sit. So servers, SAP systems, they sit within customers, and customers can be segments of your network that you want to keep segregated, or they can be actual customers if you're running a multi-tenant environment. Then we talked about actually adding or the different objects. So we went through servers, SAP systems, SAP instances, databases, business objects, and cloud services, which is also just, API endpoints. Then we went and we configured our first system. So the system we decided to configure was just a basic server, which is the server the Avantra master itself is running on. So we switched over to my screen and we went through the actual downloading, the uploading, and the installation of the Avantra agent, which sits on the server and monitors things at a local level. And then Tyler configured it within the Avantra master. So Avantra said to the agent, hey, start passing information back to me. And we started seeing that information start to flow. Then Tyler took us through each of the checks that were automatically applied to the server. So stuff like agent alive, agent connect, CPU load, file systems, memory usage, and just started to monitor the system. And then we briefly talked about connectivities, routes, and gateways, where you can have complex network designs, network setups, depending on your network layout or what the admins want to allow you or not allow you to do. Have I missed anything, or is that a fair recap of everything we've covered today?
No, that's perfect.
Awesome. So if you want to see more, please do subscribe to the channel. As I say, we'll try and do this, I think we've one planned for tomorrow. So we'll do another one tomorrow, and then we'll try and keep going as we go through periodically. But we hope that was useful. We hope we've shown you something you didn't know before, like, yes, that was the notification, turn off notifications button within the users, which is a great tip for if you want to go on vacation. And not that we can go anywhere at the moment, but if you want to go on vacation and not actually get any notifications, that's a great tip that I didn't know about as well. So I'm definitely going to use that one. So thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tim. And until next time, keep using Avantra. Thanks very much.
Thank you.